Welcome to episode 2 of Modern Day Heroes.
Episode 2.
Episode 2, bro.
I'm a founding member of this thing, dude.
You're
I
one
didn't even know.
You're one of 2. You're just not one.
Cool. I could totally take top 3.
Today we have a very exciting guest, kind of like a foundational member of my life, and I'm super excited to jam with him today and let you guys experience him a little bit. But I have Alex Martinsen here today. Came in from North Carolina and super pumped to be with him. Alex and I met 5 years ago. At the time, maybe it was 4. At the time, he was doing some life coaching stuff and transitioning from door to door and doing a lot of cool things as far as personal development. And you were a foundational piece as far as career moves for me, as far as my family. It was kind of the time period where I met my wife. And it was so incredible to have such a great sounding board, but also some incredible pieces of self-development principles that you taught me to apply in all aspects of my life. And so you're a brother to me, and I got so much love for you, and I'm excited for people to hear of your wisdom today, man. Tell us a little bit about Alex Martinsen, dude. Give us the story, maybe start from the beginning and let us get a little bit of who you are.
Well, I'm super happy to be here with you. I love you. And I love our boy Logan running the cams.
Shout out, Logan.
Shout out, Logan.
Love you too, dude.
Where did it start? Started in 1990, dude. Not far from here. Altaview Hospital. My mom, Tara, gave birth to this boy right here. And
I didn't know it was in Utah, dude.
Yeah, that's a little known fact. So I'm a father of 5, man. That's like my go-to identity answer for who am I, you know. I'm a daddy. So I have 5 kids and a lovely wife. We've been married for 13 years.
That's awesome.
It'll be 13 years this year, this September. So yeah, man, I'm an entrepreneur. I've always been entrepreneurial, you know. It helps a ton when your dad was entrepreneurial, and uncles and my grandpa on both sides. I was kind of thinking about this the other day. I really only saw examples of work for yourself, be an entrepreneur, start or own a business. Yeah. So it's interesting because, and you've probably gotten this feedback before too, but when people hear that you survive exclusively on commission or revenues from your sales team or your business, like there's a whole huge group of people out there, even successful people, that find that freaky.
Right.
Do you ever get that?
Right. All the time.
Around here in like this part of Utah and stuff,
Normal.
It's such an entrepreneurial culture.
Yeah.
But you go elsewhere, you know, like we moved to North Carolina 3 years ago. There's a lot of things that catch people off guard about us out there, right? They meet my wife and I. My wife's 30, I'm 33. We have 5 kids, and they just don't even know what to do with that information, right? They literally just look stunned. Like, what happened? You know, like, are you okay? We're like, yeah, most days. Because if they have kids that are our same ages, the parents, right, they're 10 years older than us.
Sure.
And
sure.
Which is fine. But the entrepreneurial thing, you know, it's like a fish doesn't know it's in water. I never really thought of it as being too unique or whatever. But to a lot of people it is, you know. But I'm just grateful. It was a leg up, the fact that I saw that from an early age. Yeah. And my dad was always pretty like open with me about what he was working on and how his business was going. Cool. I was very aware of things. I try to be like that with my kids, especially my son Crew, who's 11. Like, to maybe an extreme at some points, I'm very open with Crew. Like, cool. He understands like the details of the transaction we just went through, and he you know, like we've kind of tried to create this culture, I guess, of like talking about money and business is not taboo at all.
Love that.
It's just
dude.
very, just something that we freely talk about. So anyways, I said all that to say that I think of myself as an entrepreneur. And actually I'll just say that moving to the East Coast has made me grateful for Utah.
Yeah.
In a unexpected way. Like, not to where it makes me want to move back here or live here, but it just helps you realize how unique this part of Utah is, you know, Arizona, kind of this Utah, Arizona, Idaho. Like, the level of young entrepreneurial go-getters is very special and unique, dude. Like, this does not exist other places in this level of density that I've ever heard of or seen. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Makes it hard to leave, dude. It's crazy that you mentioned it, but growing up, it was normal for you to be entrepreneurial. And what a massive blessing that is, dude, because if you grew up in another state that wasn't Arizona or wasn't Utah, you could be working 9 to 5, hitting a salary. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like so cool that there's so many people that were all doing their own things where that was just normal. Therefore, there's probably never a friction for you where it's like, I'm going to do my own thing, or I'm going to go do door-to-door sales. And maybe there was a lot less fear there versus someone else that would
For
have
sure.
that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we're all conditioned. That's something you and I talked a lot about. Conditioning is a fascinating subject, dude, honestly, because you could think you're really independent and like, no, I'm immune to the effects of conditioning from my environment.
Right.
And it's not the case.
Right.
So it's not a question of, am I being conditioned and have I been conditioned? It's a question of, to what extent am I like choosing which things and people I'm conditioned by, because the conditioning will happen. So that's a different way to look at it. It's not just saying like, I'm going to resist conditioning. It's like surrendering to some degree of conditioning and saying, you know, when I hang out with a Blake Erickson, when I talk to a Ned, we're just talking about a friend Ned, right? I'm going to be conditioned at some level by that experience. And those are the types of conditioning experiences I want. So more of that, please. And then what are the areas where I'm being conditioned to be less like the person I want to be, just less of that. But the conditioning's happening either way.
Interesting. Being intentional about who you choose.
Yeah. So I was saying, if we had been conditioned that, hey, like, go to school, get the degree, get an advanced degree, go throw your resumes out there, work for, you know, one of the big 4 consulting companies, climb the ladder. Like, there's people where that's their conditioning. Right. That's what they saw as success. Right. And it doesn't make them right or wrong. But I think that the idea of going off and starting a business would certainly be a bigger hurdle because it would just seem way scarier, you know?
Big blessing.
Yeah.
Tell me this, man. First thing you said is you're a daddy, and I love that. And one of the things I've always admired most about you is how you show up and how you perform as a dad. I think in the entrepreneurial world, it's really easy to get super busy and to bring your work home and, you know, maybe not be as present with kids. It's something I struggle with greatly. Talk to us a little about how you've been able to separate the two and show up at an incredible way for your kids without bringing all your ventures home.
Well, it is a ongoing battle. It's not a battle I've won by any means. I think I have discovered a few hacks or tips that I would have liked to know in the very beginning. So
we'd love to hear them.
Some of those are, you know, you don't have to think about just leaving your business at the office or outside of the home. There's another way to approach it. It's to bring your kids to the business. So if you have a trip and you can justify bringing 1 or 2 of them along, just take them.
So cool.
Like, my kids love to go to the office, which sometimes is like the argument on the weekends because I don't want to be at the office and they just want to be at the office. They just want to run around. They just want to play there. They just think it's cool. You know, we've got some games and stuff there. So bring your kids along for the journey. And then the biggest thing that continues to amaze me is the one-on-one time. Like, it seems obvious, but when you have as many kids as I do, when you have a little army of children, 5 of them, you can fall into thinking that quality time is like me with all my kids. And there's certainly quality time to be had there, but like, straight up, it doesn't compare to the one-on-one. So just do the one-on-ones. And anytime I like successfully pull off a one-on-one date with one of my kids, it's almost like it goes so well that you feel bad. Like, dude, what am I doing not doing this more? This is where it's at. Like, if we only did one-on-ones and rarely we're all together as a family, as like weird as that sounds, I mean, that's just where it really happens. Like, It's so good.
Do you have a protocol for that where it's like, hey, once a week I do a one-on-one, or once a month, or every other week? How do you set it up?
It's just way more random than that. It's just more like based on opportunity. Like when I just see an opportunity, and you know, a lot of times it's like an add-on. So if my oldest has soccer or something, I'm taking him to soccer, but it's easy to add on a one-on-one experience after that, which is to go to Sheetz gas station, get a drink, and talk in the parking lot. You know, so, or if I'm running my kids anywhere, I see, can we leave a little early and swing by? For us, we love gas station runs. So we hit the gas station. They're just always hyped about that, get a treat, and try to have a little one-on-one conversation. What's weird for me is that I feel like my kids are my siblings a lot of times.
Interesting.
I think it's because, I mean, I feel young. I feel younger than I am.
Sure.
And I am young, you know? I don't know if that makes sense. Like, I feel like they're my siblings a lot of times. So that's interesting. I don't know. Sometimes my wife and I are looking around for like, where are mom and dad, dude? You know? I think that's why people are amazed when we have 5 kids, because like we are too. I'm like, yo,
that's cool. You take advantage of the little moments.
Yeah.
Sweet.
But there's something to that. There's something cool about, like, I feel like they're my siblings, and my wife will remind me, like, you're their dad, not their cool older brother. So like, she'll just tell me to, like, you know, I'll just treat him like a bro.
Yeah.
She's like, they're not your bro.
Has to be a blend.
I appreciate she realigns me on that a little bit. Just, you know, some sort of balance, but
it's a good wife.
But I like being young parents, you know?
Good, man.
I wouldn't change it. Yeah.
So take us back, 20 years old, 21-year-old Mart, you're getting back from a mission, and you decide to go door to door.
Mm-hmm.
Walk us through that experience in a brief way and catch us up to date from a career standpoint over the last 13 years for you.
So it was a very simple decision, because I had someone in my life that I already knew I wanted to just follow in their footsteps. And that someone was Benson Payne. So Benson Payne was my trainer on my mission. You know, from the day I landed, I met him and thought, you know, I'm gonna follow this guy. And he was the only person that I knew that was roughly my age that like seemed to have money. He always seemed to have money, way more than, you know, any of us his peers did. And even like, you know how you get like the missionary funds on the card? He always had extra funds. Everyone else, dude, blew those things the first week of the month, you know? And I always just paid attention. So that's just like, you know, step number 1. Find somebody who you can just tell has an edge on the game, is doing something right, and just stick around him.
Model success. So
I got home, didn't have a plan, and he was doing door to door. So I was like, easiest decision ever, doing that. So that was 2011. My first, like, I was just there for a very, very short part of that summer and just kept doing it. So all in all, we did 7 summers of like straight up move the family, do the whole thing, you know? So
to the point where you're taking kids out at the end.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, our daughter Lainey was born at some random hospital in Springfield, Missouri, dude, you know? And I remember her birth being extra sweet because I got to take a day off the doors, you know, which just like in August, which is when she was born, feels like total luxury, you know, when you like take a day off the doors without guilt. Because I don't know about you, but the way I was about the doors was the same way I was on the mission. Dude, I felt guilty for sitting still.
It's incredible.
I mean, it might have been a little bit much, like on the mission, bro. Like it was over the top. I would go back and pat that guy on the back and be like, dude, you can kind of chill out a little bit. But you know, we'd be sitting there and be like, we've been in this dinner appointment an hour, you know, 15 minutes more, we're for sure going to hell, you know, like let's get out of here and knock some doors, you know.
Dude, that urgency though creates so much lift and results as far as the average sales rep. If you get more people with that urgency and like consciousness of time. Yeah,
you make a good point.
I mean, less problems.
Yeah, I think it was useful. It probably got me a little further along than it would have otherwise, and I'm glad I've hopefully learned to round that out a little bit, because it's maybe not the most sustainable to always feel like you're in a rush, you know.
Yeah. So 7 years on the doors. Tell
Yeah.
us the top thing that you learned through 7 summers, 7 off seasons of recruiting, training, sales, managing teams, everything. What did the doors teach you?
Man, the doors they're a part of me, you
I
know?
know you still love them, dude.
Yeah, I do. It's like, I feel I've never served in the military, but, and I always wonder if I'm too soft, you know, I probably am, dude, honestly.
I'm for sure too soft.
Dude, I
for the
just like
military.
watch like one thing of like even just boot camp. I'm like, bro, I think I'm. But in the same way that you hear people like reminisce about like their days in the military, I feel like
Yeah.
there's some equivalent for us in that in the doors because there's just hundreds and hundreds of days in random neighborhoods, in random cities, in random states, you know, where it's just you and the door and your mental warfare of, you know, wanting to quit doing this and wondering if you're, you know, wondering if you're going to ever grow or if you're going to be stuck at this level of the game. And so it's like, you just have this like love for all the memories. But as far as distilling it down to like one big takeaway, dude, man, I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is just that like, even the guy that sucks the most, or even you, when you're sucking for a short period of time, there's still an average. There's still a batting average, even if that batting average is temporarily very low. And that is just kind of like the ultimate get you through whatever storm you're in card. Because if you just keep moving, you're going to get a deal. And the best medicine is a deal.
Yeah.
You know, you've had like conversations, I'm sure, with
100%.
reps where you're just being their psychotherapist, helping them like revisit their goals and all this stuff. And it's like, dude, that's all good. But there's one pill they could go take. It's called a sale that just makes a lot of those symptoms you were trying to correct melt away.
Yeah.
And it's all possible again. And you remember, oh, I can do this. People want this. I'm good at this. And then you go to close another deal. And that is a powerful lesson because even if you're not in the door game, you still have days where you feel like you bagel, you know, or a week where you feel like you bagel, you know, and you're in a rut. So whatever game it is that you're playing, like even if your batting average has fallen really low for whatever reason, there's still a batting average. We've all had reps that just did not look or seem like they would ever fall into a deal, and they do, right? Like, and that's just good news.
Yeah.
Just good news for anyone that's just trying at anything. It's like, bro,
Keep moving.
it's not a question of if you're going to get a win. It's just a question of like, is your batting average really low right now? It's just going to take longer than you'd like, but just the win will propel you to a higher batting average. It's going to turn on the engines again and reignite the belief. So
Beautiful. So you go do 7 summers,
yeah.
and then you get to a point where, you know, you've been dragging the family across the country.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us what happens from there.
Yeah, so we were living in Gilbert, Arizona, and I had just completed my last summer, 2017. And it was a good summer, but I was clear that I think it's time to try to find something I can do year round. And so for me, that thing was solar in Arizona. And yeah, I didn't really even have a team or manage. I just for a solid year and a half, just sold solar with a buddy. And so kind of transitioned from intense summers traveling to not traveling and working year round.
And then around that time period, you met a guy named Mark.
Yeah.
And you started coaching with him. 2 principles that you taught me that changed my entire experience as far as door-to-door sales goes was this concept of becoming victimless, which I'd like to dive into a little bit. And then second, the idea of playing unattached or having passionate attachment. Before we move on with the rest of your story, I'd love for you to dive in a little bit deep on maybe your experience with Mark, getting coaching, and what passionate detachment means to you, And how have you seen that alter your life, that concept?
I'd love to talk about that. So,
It's groundbreaking for me, dude. This
yeah.
altered my world
Oh, I know,
when you shared this with me.
bro. I joked and told Logan he better have some SD cards. I can get really long-winded on this topic, dude. So
Yeah, we can
I'll
go
try
for
to
a
rein
while.
it in. But so it was 2018. I remember just being in a state of like, I felt like I was a string that was just pulled so tight it was gonna pop any second. And what I mean by that is I just felt like I had so many responsibilities. And I'm a huge fan of responsibility. I'm a huge Jordan Peterson fan, and the way he talks about go heap responsibility on yourself to the point where you can barely stand it as like a way of orienting yourself toward a productive, a meaningful life. Like there's a relationship between responsibility and meaning in your life. So I'm a fan of responsibility generally. And I just felt like I had so many competing responsibilities that I just felt like something's got to give. I don't have the bandwidth to just keep this going, but I wasn't sure what to let go of and to double down on. I wasn't sure, like all I knew is that I was in a weird spot.
Yeah.
I didn't know what to do to get out of the spot. And so I started kind of exploring what are some different things I could do that I've never tried. And one of those was I had heard of this like 3-day retreat thing that this guy was doing in California. It was like this immersive kind of, so I'm looking at that. I'm looking at like Tony Robbins, week-long events. I was kind of in the hunt for like this cool thing. And I owe a lot to, shout out to Cameron Bodden, very successful friend of mine. He owns Green Mango Pest Control down in Arizona and some other companies as well. We weren't even like friends at the time, but somehow he became aware that I was kind of searching this out. And he's like, hey, before you do that, before you go spend money or time on any of those things, please let me introduce you to my coach, Mark Fournier. He's like, I don't even tell people even close to me that I'm working with this guy, but like, I just feel like you should know, like, let me let you in on the secret kind of a thing. And I had never had any experience firsthand or even known someone that like had a one-on-one coach. But he invited me to go to dinner with this guy, Mark. And what I did have in my mind when I thought of a coach was like this really like hard, kind of aggressive, David Goggins scream in your face type. And so I was really caught off guard when this guy was just in this Hawaiian shirt, just big hug, jolly guy in his like 50s. And I was just like, kind of caught off guard, but we had this good meal. And I remember in the parking lot at the end, he just said like, if you work with me, you will not recognize yourself in 12 months from today. And I just believed him. I'm like, I believe you when you say that. It just hit me. And so I made the plunge, and I honestly don't remember what his fee was at the time. Like,
I think it was $60K.
$60K?
That's what you told me.
Yeah, that sounds right. $5,000 a month. And when you go from never having invested in personal development, I mean, I was looking at things that were like, $1,000 weekend or something.
Yeah.
It was very shocking to like my wife because I didn't even ask. I just like told her I already started this.
Sure.
Right? But she very quickly bought in and was super supportive, but just, it was a weird thing to like jump off the ledge and do.
Yeah. It's not a small sum of money.
So yeah, man, Mark, I owe a lot to him. Like where to start, passionate attachment. I'll start by recounting like my first conversation I ever had with him. My first coaching conversation I remember extremely clearly. I was in the parking lot of a Walmart, just on the phone, and our coaching calls were never video, only audio. He's very big on that.
Yeah. Why is that? I've always wondered.
Yeah. So he is a big believer that if you've got the video to deal with, it's just a little bit more for you to be thinking about and processing. Yeah. You're paying attention to their facial expressions. You're kind of thinking about how your face is being perceived. If you don't have that, it really forces you to really fine tune your listening and to have all of the inflection and meaning come through your voice. Also, I love to pace and stuff when I'm on the phone, so it kind of worked for me. But he just asked me, you know, he's like, okay, I get that you feel like your head's barely above water. You feel so much pressure and tension and responsibility, and like so many people are counting on you. And if you break, then all this stuff's going to be collateral damage. But what do you need? You know, and I've tried to talk to you about this a ton, but it's like, he just kept drilling on this. What do you need? That was his quality question, you know? And it's a very hard hitting question. Two of the hardest hitting questions I know of are, what do you need? Just full stop, and just let someone ask that. But even more intense is, what do you want? And just like literally letting somebody answer, not answering for them, but just listening. Try that sometime. If you're ever looking to just stimulate a conversation, ask somebody point blank, what do they want? And just let them talk. Dude, it's crazy. It's crazy how pointed of a question that is. Because spoiler alert, we don't know, you know, most of us very vaguely know what we want. And it's actually closer to knowing what we don't want, less about what we actually want.
For sure.
So anyway, but he was just digging in on like, what do you need? What do you need? And I'm like, I need my family. I need my faith in God. I need all these things that sounded like nice answers, like the real answers. And he's like, okay, we're getting really literally here. What do you need? And I'm like, so if you think about that, you know, and like anyone listening, if you like think about like, okay, what does that even mean? At its deepest level, need references survival, not even happy living, or like, what do you need to be happy? What do you need to be? It's just need to live, meaning your heart keeps beating.
Right.
That's how granular we were getting. I'm like, oh, okay. I'm like, well, I need food. He's like, okay, now we're getting somewhere. What else do you need? I'm like, I need water. He's like, okay, what else? And I struggled around for a little bit. He helped me land on the 4, which of course is food, water, shelter, and oxygen. And he said, do you have everything you need? Now that you know and you're clear that those are the only 4 things you need, do you have them? And it's like, yeah, I have them, you know? And he's like, do you have just barely enough? Or like, you got some abundance with it, you know? Like, are you almost not sheltered, or like, are you sheltered? Do you have shelter? Like, I got shelter, you know? He's like, and if something happens to your shelter, if you can't pay the mortgage, or you go bankrupt, or your house gets foreclosed on, do you still have access to shelter? Yes or no? And it's like, yes, right? Like, I have family. I have friends. I have extended family. I have a community. I have a church community. Like, if anyone listening to this, like, actually think how many levels there are between you and homelessness on the street. It's a lot of levels, dude. To the point where the only people that I know that are homeless on the street, and I only know one, it's because of choices they've made that have put them there, and a lifestyle that they essentially want to stay there, because they don't see another path. But it's not because of economic failure. That's what I'm saying. Okay. Yeah. So when you and I were young, you've got a young family, the weight of the economic pressure of like, I am the GDP of this family. I got to keep this thing rolling, you know, like they're all depending on me to provide a good life, and not just the basics of life, but a good life. And we feel that pressure. And I think there's good in feeling that pressure to a point. But he shined a light on the fact that hidden in that pressure was the dark side of that pressure, which was this fear that I might not have my needs met, which by extension means my family might not have their needs met. Like, we might be on the street. And that produces a very primal response. Like, we are hardwired to panic and stress out to survive that. And so just to have someone walk me through this exposing of the reality that not only my needs met, it's not even remotely close to not having them met.
Yeah. It's powerful.
Dude, the food, the water, the shelter, and the oxygen. And I remember having that conversation with you. It's like, have you ever been hungry? Not on purpose. Like, not really, right?
Never.
And to even imagine how many levels of safety there are between you and you starving to death it's like silly. Like if you had to list them all, it's just silly. It's basically, you've got it made. It's basically guaranteed with an asterisk that if the entire system fails, the entire system fails. If everything falls apart, nuclear freaking warfare, Armageddon tomorrow, everything, EMP attack goes off tomorrow. But that's like the whole video game gets unplugged. We're talking about in the confinement of the video game itself, this life, you have it made. And I'm not just talking to like successful Blake. I'm saying anybody who right now feels like the struggling college student is like just trying to figure something out and like your debit card just, insufficient funds at the Walmart. Like if you're like, no, dude, I'm in it. I'm in the struggle. People would be resistant to you telling them in that state, no, you have it all made. And it would sound like easy for you to say, Blake, right? Like someone has to be in a space where they're really open to hearing that and believing it and being like, dang, it's a paradigm shift. Because when you realize that that's a recent phenomenon, like most humans, there's debate about how long humans have been humans around, walking around, but we know it's a very long time. And I don't know if anyone would disagree with me that the vast majority of them couldn't say the same, because every day start over on find food and water and shelter every day. It's like they were on a treadmill to survive. And it's a very recent thing that's not what our existence revolves around. So it makes total sense that the wiring is still very alive in us. It's intense. I mean, we are constantly feeling like we're under threat of losing out on survival. And it's creating interference all over the place. I mean, it's literally slowing us down just in business with our wife and kids. I mean, that's why people are like, have that faraway look in their eyes when they're with their wife because they're stressed. But it's because their nervous system is like thinking they might like
worst case scenario
be up against death, So I just remember that one conversation was worth every penny. If we never talked again, it was so visceral for me. And that's why coaching is powerful, is because someone could tell you that, but you bring yourself to the conversation in a unique way when you spend that money. And that period of time, that was a lot of money for me.
Sure.
Like I was listening to every word, It's like you're the kid on the very front row. Like you're not missing a word. And so when it got that deep inside of me, because I'm that attentive, it was like, it really shocked me. It shook me up, dude. I was like, oh my gosh. So then the next thing is like, if you believed 100% that you had all your needs met and that you always will, you've made it. Everything else is a fun, exciting game. Everything else is in the realm of want. So what do you want to go create with this unbelievable opportunity you have to go be one of the very few humans ever that doesn't have to wake up every day and think about survival? You literally everything's an elective class. Everything's an elective class, dude. In this degree, we're going to go get whatever it is. And it's like the most energizing, invigorating realization that I'd ever had was like, holy crap, dude. It's all about what do I want my life to be like. Everything else is figured out for me at its most basic level. So that kind of like launched me, man. I felt so much relief from that one call that it kind of created this upward spiral of me just feeling more abundant, more peaceful. And it had the unintended consequence of leading to me having a lot of conversations about this very thing with people that just happen to be near me, people that I happen to just be around, And that's what kind of eventually led to you and I meeting. Was I just was having conversations with this or about this stuff with our buddy Ryan Lee, who we both love to death.
The man.
And it was not because I was trying to like coach Ryan. It wasn't because I was trying to teach him anything. It's because I was genuinely like a kid in a candy store, so excited about the breakthroughs that I just had to tell somebody, which is like true evangelism, right? That is like evangelism at its core. It's when it's effortless to share because you're so blown away. And he was just feeling the benefits. He's like, dude, this is the kind of stuff I need to be talking about, He's like, can we do this more? And I'm like, well, sure, I don't know. Call me sometime, But to his credit, and I thank him because it led to a really interesting chapter of my life, which was like, he was like, I want to formalize this. I want to schedule time with you where we do this every week. And I was like so not on board. I didn't understand, like, it just didn't make sense to me. I'm like, you're a peer. Yeah. What are you talking about? Yeah. Are you saying I'm going to be like Mark? He's like my Yoda, dude. I'm not Yoda. I'm just like your boy, And he was just persistent enough to where finally I was just like, dude, I feel like I'm telling my dear friend no. So let me just tell him yes. And so we just did it. So we just set up, I think it was Thursday mornings for a year. We had calls, followed the same format that Mark did, which was a recorded phone call. He would re-listen to the recording, send me his notes the night before, the week before. And it was the most fun thing I had ever done. Like, I was fired up about it. I would text my wife after every call, like, there is something going on, but this is magic. This is the best time I've ever had because we're talking only about the things that matter. We're just getting deep. We're getting real. And we're like actually seeing results. Like, I'm getting better because I'm teaching things. So I'm reinforcing it in my own life. Yeah. He's loving it. Yeah. And so what that grew into was eventually me deciding to kind of just like open myself up to it, and turned into a coaching practice where I had, 8 clients at a time and was like full time, having these calls with, you included. So
just being fired up all day, every day.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. And just revisiting that's a gift for me, Thanks for asking me, because those feelings are so visceral. I mean, you have breakthroughs where you remember where you were. I mean, you remember everything. And it's like I had a few of those with Mark that then allowed me to go and just fortunately share them with other people. So yeah.
I'm so grateful I was able to be a recipient of that. It was life-changing. And I'm grateful for Mark, man. I've never even met him myself, but I'm glad Ryan Lee made you put you to the fire, dude, and made you do it, because truly, dude, my life has been altered by a lot of the things that you shared with me. 2 of which are, you mentioned it briefly, but you came to the realization that life is just a big fun game. We get so serious. We get so caught up. We got to do this. We need to do this. I have to go hit these benchmarks, these landmarks. I have all these things I need to do. I have all these responsibilities. And the thought of, hey, it's all a game, changes everything. How did that change for you?
Yeah, man. It's a polarizing thing to say that this is all a big, exciting game. And ideas that are powerful and impactful, they ruffle feathers, right? Like, no mainstream, really soft, cushy idea is really all that powerful, right? So there are people that would take offense to that. And I think that's worth thinking about. I mean, if you want to really like stress test a concept, flip it on its head and give it the extreme. Say, okay, cool. You're in Palestine right now. You're on the Palestine-Israel border. Is this a game? Like, bro, it takes it up a notch, It's different, Sitting here drinking liquid deaths with my boy in Orem, like, oh, okay. Is it just for us? Yeah. Is it just us that it's a game because we have this like unfathomable level of like privilege and wealth around us, And I'm not even speaking to us specifically. I'm just saying, like, if you live in this zip code in 2024, you are among the wealthiest, safest human beings to ever walk this rock,
Blessed for sure.
So flip it on its head and go to people that are in a state of, It's weird. But I'll tell you, I've thought about it. I've thought this through, and I still believe it. So I'm still comfortable with it, because I'm not even saying that it is absolutely a game for everyone. I'm saying that is a paradigm you can choose to wear. You can choose to put on those lenses. And, you know, it's been said way more articulately than I can say, but there's this concept that we don't interface with reality. We don't actually have the ability to see base reality. We only have the ability to perceive the world around us through our lens, which is a combination of biological factors and conditioning factors, societal. I mean, I can't know exactly what this room looks like to you. I never will know. I assume it's very similar, but I'm also colorblind. So I got issues with colors. I don't know if you knew that.
I didn't.
So it literally probably looks different. So the life as a game paradigm, dude, is like, I'm grateful for it. I appreciate it. What does it do for me? It's like, it's the opposite of a test. So I think I grew up more often thinking about life as a test. And I think our religious culture maybe informed that. We talk about a probationary period.
Yeah.
Test, we're tested, probationary period. Okay, some of these words are kind of heavy. We've all taken tests. I don't know anyone that loves tests. We've all played games. I know lots of people that love games. And we choose to play games with our spare time. We pay money to play games. We pay money to go see games played. We love games. So I don't know who would disagree with me that they like the person that they show up as when they are in or around a game. And they probably don't love as much the person they show up as when they are in or around a test. So it's like, I mean, who decides if it's a test or a game? It's like, you do. And I just decided it's a game, and it wasn't my idea. Mark gave me that idea. So thank you. You know, I'm like, oh, if it's a game, we do better. And so that's where there's actually some science to it. There's a Mark Rober YouTube video. Actually it's when Mark Rober, the YouTuber, did a TED Talk about this, where they did like a double-blind study. I don't know if you'd even call it a double-blind study, dude. I don't even know what I'm saying, but like two groups of people, okay, that were both like trying to accomplish this task. One of them, it was a test. It was framed as a test, prepare for the test.
Yeah.
And then the other one, it was a game. The people that were playing the game performed better, like significantly better, because they were playing a game. It's like, when you hear it, it's almost like, oh, well, duh. But like, dude, that can show up for you every day. You're just way looser. You just play the game looser. It's like you swing the bat in case you hit the ball. Not like you're holding the bat like, I got to hit this ball or we're done. You know, you're not going to hit the ball as far or as often. And if you do, you're just not going to enjoy it. It's going to feel like work. And so I'll tell you, like, when I'm at my best, I'm in the game paradigm. I'm like, we are playing a game. And I just going to keep putting tokens in this thing because
having a blast.
It's a fun game. And I think I kind of evolved from thinking that fun was a nice to have. Like, man, we're just so fortunate and lucky to have fun if we have it. But in the life is an exciting game paradigm, it's more than just a nice to have. It's like required. Otherwise it's not a game. Like fun is not, there's a book, The Excellence Dividend, where he says, fun is the very essence. Oh yeah. He says serious play is not an oxymoron because play is the very essence of innovation. And that's like what I'm ultimately trying to get at. It's like when we are in a playful state, you do your best work. You are the more attractive person. People want to be around you. You have more ideas. Like you recover from failures way quicker. You physically recover faster, right? Like everything's made better. So it's like, if that's true, why not just baptize yourself in that paradigm every single day, you know, and just see what happens, you know?
For those listening, if they can internalize that nugget, dude, that could be 15 minutes of life-altering content. It's interesting when you bring up the Palestine thought of, is it still a game for those people and what they're going through? The second one I mentioned briefly was this idea of becoming victimless. I don't know if I told you, but I'm writing a book called Becoming Victimless. Thank you for inspiring that initial concept in me. And one of the phrases or paradigms is life happens for us, not to us.
Yeah.
And we've gone and we've listened to Tony Robbins, and that's a big thing that he centers a lot of his content around. 3 weeks ago, I'm in Arizona, and one of my best friends from high school passes away with his wife. Tragic accident. Horrific. And couldn't imagine the pain that the families involved are going through, and just it's horrible. And it was such an interesting opportunity for me to challenge myself in the way of like, does this quote still apply in a moment like this? Is life still happening for us, or did this thing happen to us? And just like you said, after internalizing it forever, and I don't want to say this with any disrespect, but after internalizing it, I truly still believe that life happens for us, not to us. And that death, as tragic as it been, I have seen hundreds of people reconnect that would have never reconnected. Unity in a community that probably needed unity. Blessings and miracles and testimony strengthened, and incredible experiences because of this one tragic accident. And so I'm grateful for that. But I would love for you to dive deep on what it means to be victimless per se, as we're all victims. And as that's the natural inclination that we have, is to truly be the victim in most situations, and how becoming victimless has benefited you in your life.
All right. So yeah, you bring up some deep points. I'm trying to decide if that's kind of two separate things that we want to tackle. This idea of like, does the it's all life is a game, does that still hold up even in tragedy?
Sure.
Like that was kind of the first part of
Sure.
your question, right? Like, is it still true?
Which my conclusion was it is.
So let's touch on that for a second, and then we can talk about this victimless, egoless thing. Here's the thing. I'm often like the contrarian by nature. When someone says something, I find my brain start to kind of go like look for the exceptions. So when Mark was talking about life's an exciting game, I found myself going to the exceptions. Like, okay, well, easy for us to say, but like, what about the tragedy in the world? And what about, you know, the problem of evil, right? The problem of evil is one of like the oldest philosophical conundrums ever, because it is hard to swallow. Like, we don't think in detail about the tragedy happening in the world from moment to moment in our lives, because it'd be unwieldy. Like, we can't function. Like, what are we going to do? Just sit here and cry? Doesn't do anything, right? So we actually intentionally block it out, or unintentionally. We block it out of just straight up necessity. We have to function. And we have this capacity to feel empathy and to feel sadness and to feel terrible pain. So a lot of those things, you know, are kind of like, they seem to be competing or whatever. So back to this idea of, can you still lean into the life as a game paradigm even in tragedy? What I would say is that calling it a game does not cheapen it. It doesn't mean it's all a silly game. It doesn't mean that it's all something that we're just doing to pass the time. It's the most important game that's ever been designed, that's ever been built, that we will ever play. It's very important. And so that paradigm, that view of it's a game still allows for pain and tragedy in the game. But there's just a difference in the way we react to that tragedy and pain when it's against the backdrop that this is all a video game. Some people may have issue with the video game thing. Video game, I'll say, that was designed by a being way more intelligent than us, and that this whole thing is intended to be very short. Like, that's what I mean by it's a game. It actually has like start date, end date, a designer, and a point. There's a point to this, and it's not just for the entertainment of the gods, you know? It's because apparently, and this is where it blends with, theology, is that apparently the only way to get to the next level of intelligence involves being put in this incredible 3D game called life with amnesia of what happened before the game. Apparently that's part of the plan, as I understand it. So you can still love the fact that, hey, this isn't actually it. This isn't actually the whole purpose of our existence. We're very old, man. We've been around for longer than we can possibly conceive of, our spirit, and we will exist for longer than we can conceive of. And we're in this short moment with amnesia, experiencing kind of rapid fire events, because apparently, and this is a I believe thing, that's the only way to ascend from whatever level we were on to the next level.
Yeah.
So when you zoom out like that, it has a way of immunizing us against complete breakdown over tragedy. For those who don't have any concept or even a hope, hope to me is kind of like the precursor to belief. Like, you can hope to believe. Someone who is without belief in God as a designer and this as an intelligently crafted game, and to take it a step further, those that don't even have a hope in that, I mean, there's just really it's just total black. The tragedies of life threaten to completely destabilize you and crush you forever.
Absolutely. Because
this is it. This is the whole thing. And so, the tragedy with your friend, it's like, a really deep question is like, when we lose loved ones earlier than we expected to lose them, because that's really where a lot of the tragedy is, in the timeline of it, right? Like, I believe my wife is going to die. I just have an expectation that it's going to be when she's, 107, holding my hand, and we're just going out together, But the timeline was way sooner than anyone expected in this case, and in other cases where we've lost loved ones. The question is, was God like devastated about it? Like, do we think God, and it seems crazy to try to think what God thinks or feels, because it's like, it just seems obvious that we're so much less intelligent than him. But there's just this sense that, like, it's because of how limited we are and how short-sighted we are that it feels as tragic as it does. With a different perspective, man, there's a version where it's like, no, like, all along that was his full life. That's, because we grapple with the unexpected nature of it. But what if you were a being who knew exactly when that was going to happen? Yeah. And he's always known from the very beginning. There's no surprise. He's not shocked. And I think the trauma is linked with the shock of it. So if there was no shock, no surprise, it was just a big, like, welcome home, from the game. It hits way different. So it's not to say that, like, someone can just hear that idea and now they're no longer sad about something. I think being sad and feeling The pain is important.
Absolutely.
And there's a way to move forward and upward through the pain with that backdrop of a perspective. Because there are people, absolutely, that experience a tragedy, an unexpected heartbreak, and they don't go up and to the right. Like, they actually go down and to the right. They actually let it take their whole life down a dark path.
Yeah.
Where they don't contribute. They don't, set big goals for themselves. I mean, they actually withdraw. And so there's a very real choice facing us anytime an unexpected heartbreak occurs. And I think the idea of this is a beautiful game actually comes to the rescue in those scenarios. So sometime we'll have to talk about what it means for people who are in a state of war as well,
It's beautiful.
But we could pivot and talk about victim and ego.
Yeah.
So the way that Mark kind of characterized this was talking mostly about ego, and I like that you've kind of taken it and run with the victim aspect of it. This is for sure a topic where I can go way too long. I've experienced that, bro. No, I have. Like, I've literally had conversations where I start talking about this, and then I realize, I'm like, bro, I'm not even self-aware. That was 2 hours right there, and they did not sign up for this. And so I'm trying to remind myself of those experiences.
Keep it crisp.
And just keep it crispy, dude. But this is a nugget for sure, like a total life-changing nugget for me.
We're going to charge for this podcast episode, by the way.
Yeah, charge something. But Mark just taught me that every one of us has a subset to our consciousness. So your sense of who you are, just like that you exist, there's this subset, there's this part of that consciousness that developed around the age of 2 or 3 years old called the ego. And his number one job is to protect you and to make sure that you look and feel okay. And it's a very powerful driver to a lot of the decisions we make in our life, because we have this little, I think of him as a security guard or a guard dog that's been following us around since we were 2 or 3 to check out the scene, see what someone's saying about us, and just make sure we're okay. Plain and simple. The issue is that we're very unconscious of this companion. We don't realize that he's even with us. Or that he's a separate entity. Like, it's not us, it's our ego. And he helped me a ton to kind of separate that, realize like, oh. And until he taught me, I just didn't realize how much of a role my ego was playing in my life. So one of the ways that he got me to understand that I'm not my ego was the exercise where for a week, anytime I referred to myself, instead of saying I am upset, if I used the pronoun I would stop myself and say my ego is upset. And that just kind of helps to drive in the point, like, oh, okay. Because that is the teaching that, it's only my ego that gets upset, jealous, nervous, all those negative emotions. And I'm not even sure if I want to say all the emotions yet, but I'm sure that like those ones that I listed, for sure, it's the ego that feels those. Like, my true self doesn't actually feel those. It doesn't even have that capacity. And so I learned to start to identify or recognize, he would say, when my ego was engaged or upset. And that's powerful, because if you recognize that your ego is the upset one, then you can do the things that calm your ego down. So if you're upset and don't understand that you have an ego that's upset, you just think you're upset, you're less capable of making yourself unupset.
Yeah.
So do you remember if your ego is really upset and you know it's your ego, you have the awareness to go, okay, I'm not upset, my ego's upset. What is it that you can do to disemploy your ego and get him to chill out?
I've forgotten, dude.
So it is simply to assure yourself that you're okay and that you're safe. Like, it really is that simple. Because if you are okay, the ego doesn't have a job. He's fired up because he's your guard dog and he thinks there's a threat. So he's upset, and that upset hurts it doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
It clouds your vision. It clouds your judgment. But when you remind yourself that you're okay, he's like, oh, there's no threat. There's nothing to do. So he goes to sleep. And that's the place where we want to be, which is not egoless, which is to say without ego, because Mark would say, and I agree, that that's not even a thing. Like ego is with us forever in this life. It's part of us. The goal is to be ego - less often with an engaged ego. That's like a higher level goal. And the ego is a victim. So to your point, it's not to be victimless, because we will always be, to some degree, a victim. It just seems to be hardwired in. Maybe there's someone that can transcend that. But a game that feels a little more like reasonable to play is like, okay, well, let me just be a victim less. Let me be 50% less often a victim, right? And especially in scenarios or circumstances or social circles where you notice you are often experiencing yourself as a victim, or your ego is often engaged. Like those are the playgrounds, right? So for a lot of people, like that, the like cliche one is like family dinner at Thanksgiving, right? Or like high school reunion, like areas where there is typically a lot of landmines for your ego to get engaged and to feel envious or not respected or whatever. When you can go into those circumstances actually like excited to say like, okay, I know I'm going to get triggered. I know I'm a victim. I know that I have those tendencies as just a human. That's okay. All I'm trying to do is see if I can be a victim, be in my ego 50% less. That's a huge win, and just play the game like that. Because then the next time you like totally get caught up in your own ego and like you just totally know, like, dude, I'm totally in that victim state. Yeah. My ego's freaking out. Yeah. You won't beat yourself up about it and be like, oh man, I thought I grew out of this. Like, I know better, I've been reading books. I should be better than this. It's like, no. Like, we're not even trying to get to that level of enlightenment. Maybe in the next life or something, like just be like, oh, here I am again, being an ego victim. The game is just less often. There we go. Let's just start there. And so, hopefully that was a somewhat crispy explanation of.
Dude, those are nuggets. I appreciate that. I think the power is in actually recognizing I can never not be 100% not a victim, or I can never not be without ego. And I think that's actually when the power begins.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just, there's a level of acceptance. It's just the wrong target to set. Yeah. To say I'll never be a victim again. It's like you've already lost because you misunderstand one of the basics of, like if we're a video game, our avatar, dude, he's got some built-in stuff, man. Like he's got some things that are just coded. Like,
can't be a 99 across the board.
Yeah. Don't even try. And maybe someone's got a totally different perspective, but like, I think when we're aiming at something that is so, it's like if it almost is like against the known laws of physics, you're going to sap some of the motivation and the drive to stick with it. Like, so go with something where you can actually imagine a version where you're 50% less often a victim. Like, oh, anybody can imagine that. So it just seems like a more reasonable, like goal or aim,
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I love it. One last thought before I transition. We spent some time at Tony Robbins, went to Russell Brunson's FHL event.
That was some really good times, man.
We have to run that back, dude.
I know. We've taken a couple years off.
Yeah, it's time to bring that back. We've gotten to know our good friend Ben Hardy, who's been an asset for both of us in so many different ways.
Dude, was he episode 1?
He needs to be episode 3, bro.
Let's get him in for episode 3, dude. Bring me back for that one.
He is the man. But what's been cool about our experiences together is we've learned a lot from others.
Sent him a message today, by the way.
Did you?
Yeah.
Cool. He texted me last week. He said we need to sync. We'll have to FaceTime after
We love him. Anyone listening to this that doesn't know who Dr. Benjamin Hardy is, figure it out.
He has some of the best books written in this 21st century for sure.
Dude. Yeah, just amen. My mom's like
Look
the
'em up.
biggest fan, dude. And my dad, it's funny.
Dude.
Because they like, I swear I told him about some of his books and stuff a while back. And then I just took a while to hit. My mom's like, have you read The Gap in the Game?
Yeah,
I'm like,
yeah,
welcome. Welcome.
Been at this party for 3 years, Mom.
Yeah.
But what's been cool about it, dude, is I think and obviously I hired you as a coach and massive ROI. You hired Mark. We've been able to rub shoulders and experience a lot of self-development, coaching, whether it's in a group seminar, one-on-one, whatever that may be. For those out there that are feeling friction towards saying, hey, I'm going to put money, I'm going to put some capital, I'm going to put some time, some energy into investing in myself, which we all probably were at one point at the beginning, what would you say to that person?
I would say that the return on investment in yourself is twofold. So there's the actual return on the thing that you invested in doing. If you hire a personal coach, like let's say a fitness coach or trainer, there's the benefit of actually getting in better shape, enjoying your fitness and your health better. Okay, that's like the obvious one. But there's this secondary benefit that is you are giving your subconscious an example of a new identity. I am the kind of person that invests in my own development. So if you give yourself examples of that, you start to become the person that like, oh, I actually really prioritize investment in my own development. And that's a powerful thing to believe about yourself. So that's crazy because even if the thing you invested in ended up not being the greatest or whatever, there's this other benefit you're probably not thinking about. Like you're the kind of person that actually pulls out his credit card and like takes some shots on goal to like level up. And if like, cause look, YouTube is one of the most incredible. I love just talking about YouTube, dude, because it's like, do people even know? It is so amazing what you can learn on YouTube. And also my ego gets engaged and offended when someone doesn't pay for premium YouTube. So
I gotta go do it.
If you don't pay for premium, just don't tell me about it, because here's the deal. Okay. Figure your life out. You can't run a video in the background unless you have premium. So like you get a text, you get a call, your video stops. What are you doing? Okay. So
it's a good application item.
Look,
for me,
man.
bro.
Yes, you can download videos so you can listen to them on the plane. You can speed up videos, watch them at 1.5 times speed. Like there's no ads. I mean, this isn't sponsored by YouTube, but come on, dude. Passionate about that. So there are free resources galore, like never before in history. Like, dude, we're swimming in the information age. And incredible books. The whole podcast industry, dude, is amazing. We need more of this, right? You're contributing to that. That being said, even for someone who is a self-starter, they're a learner, they want to better themselves, there is just a difference between when you pay with your time and your money.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that is a barrier for some. And I think for me, I got over that pretty quickly. But I know some people that they're like, dude, why would I pay that much? Like, I'll just buy the book. And it's like, okay, buy the book. I'm telling you, there's buy the book, and then there's like ingest it, soak in it, get it into every cell of your body. And at least in my experience, that like high level of like digestion and get something actually into you comes when you pay to play. And like it hurts. I mean, like that first year of coaching, it's like, dude, you think I was going to miss a $5,000 phone call?
Right.
I mean, bro, that's a lot of money, It was double my mortgage. Like, I'm not missing that call. I'm sure as heck not going to be late. I'm not going to not have my notes done. Like, hello. So if you were just going to have a phone call with someone at no cost, something's going to come up, dude.
Right.
Oh, I can't make it. Let's move it around. That's the difference. Like, that's very real. You can't ignore that. But if you haven't experienced that, it might be hard to wrap your mind around. But people don't have to go spend $5,000 or $10,000 a month on a coach. They could go spend, $1 $100 on an Audible membership or something and just start there. But like, it's really like an identity change thing that like, I am a person who prioritizes investment in myself above all my other investments, you know? So I just hired a coach recently. Like I'm still like, I'm on this, dude.
Never stops, dude.
It's not like you hire a coach and then like, you're good.
Well, dude, you crave him. But like, you get one, it's like, cool. What else can someone teach me?
Yeah, for sure.
Who else is out there? That's fun. This podcast name is Modern Day Heroes, bro. And you are a hero of mine.
Wow.
And I'm so grateful for you and I love you. Recently, you've gone through a transaction. I'm super proud of you and so happy about that. In the transaction, you've been able to rub shoulders with Sandlot Partners, with Larry H. Miller, some big names, incredible names here in Utah County. Casey Baugh, don't have the closest relationship with him personally, but has been a mentor of mine for years and years and years. And I'm sure Larry H. Miller, there's just some incredible people there. Tell me some of the learnings that you've had going through that transaction and being able to rub shoulders, communicate, connect with people from either Sandlot Partners, Larry H. Miller, and drop a couple nuggets for us, man.
Yeah. I'd be happy to. So the short story is, you want me to talk a little bit about like
Give
starting
us a
the
little
business?
context.
Okay. So I did solar sales for several years
Crushed it.
and never really saw where I wanted to take it. I didn't really think of myself as like, I'm going to play a big game in solar. It was always like, I can kind of sell solar on the side while I do other things. And it's a really good funding source for other things. That was what I thought of it as.
Right.
Moved my family to North Carolina 3 years ago, not for any particular business reason, but we just kind of felt like we were ready to change up our environment, try something new. And North Carolina just kept calling out to us. So we moved from Arizona, you know? And out there I was doing coaching. I built an online course, took this course. Talk about investment in yourself, dude. I bought this course from Sam Ovens. Did I ever tell you about that? Sam Ovens.
Yeah.
He is super smart. And I followed that course to the T and it just worked out, dude. Like it was awesome. It's just really cool to go buy. There are courses out there for whatever you're interested in, man. You can go find a course. And if you actually are a good student and like follow the steps, amazing. Like my return on investment on that course was insane. He actually started a platform called School. And I don't know if you saw this, but Alex Hormozy just made his biggest investment ever into School. So now Alex Hormozy and Sam Ovens are working together, which is like a powerhouse, dude.
Interesting.
I'm a big Alex Hormozy fan.
We were talking about School like 2.5 years ago, dude.
Yeah. Dude, we were one of the first. I mean, hey.
Well, I'll make sure Alex knows.
Our program was in School.
Yeah.
Anyways, I got excited about that for a sec. I got lost.
Took the course, followed it to a T.
So anyway, we're out there doing that, and I'm selling some solar on the side. Okay. And I had the blessing and the gift of being encouraged and given kind of an idea and encouragement by Benson. So same.
Full circle,
man. Just, you know.
Incredible, dude.
Really grateful for him. But he'd been having big success up in New York with a roofing company that bundles solar. And he's like, dude, maybe you're not, you know, I don't think these were his words, but the message I got was like, maybe you're not burned out of solar. Maybe you've just never actually really done it. Like, what if you actually just really, really did it? Do the whole thing, meaning like install your own deals, run your own ads, have your own sales force, do everything internal, like go build an actual company. He's like, I think you could do it, you know, and shared some insights from things that had worked well for them. And dude, that is all I needed. I swear, I just was like waiting for a catalyst, like a little kick in the pants somewhere. We were in Idaho at a family reunion. And I remember it just felt like something clicked in my brain. I was like, I'm doing this. Made a few phone calls, had some good friends say I'm in, move out there, made some hires. And like, it just kind of went pretty quick, you know, like within 90 days of us deciding to do this, we were putting our first system up on a house that was like, we're installing it, you know. We created the ad online. We closed it. We did the permitting. We did the install.
Way fun.
Pretty quick, you know. So like a lesson learned there is like, dude, the next thing, it can happen really fast.
Yeah.
And this is actually, I want to mention this because I was talking to Benson about the fact that I felt behind. So I'm sure you have people probably listening that are like, they feel behind. Like they might see, And this is where ego can get engaged, right? Where you see people that are your same age that have like hit certain levels and you're like, dude, I'm not at that level yet. And I'm 5 years older, 10 years older. That could be a problem, you know, if we don't know how to control our ego. But I definitely felt behind. And I felt behind financially. I was like, dude, I just would love to be like swinging the bat with some investments and like building some stuff up. I feel like I'm just still I knew how to like make like reasonably high income with sales, but not anything that ran without me. You know, I didn't have any actual like capital
systems,
you know, or any like equity in something that could produce when I wasn't actually the one producing it, which is like a huge, that's like the wealth jump, right? Like when you go from being the individual contributor, the self-employed one-man show, to build a system that actually works while you're not there is like the holy grail of entrepreneurship. So, anyway, so we're doing it, man. Like we're selling, we're installing, learning a ton. And then an opportunity showed up completely unexpected, which was the Larry H. Miller Group and Sandlot Partners came in and they wanted to invest in my brother-in-law, Benson's company. Benson's my brother-in-law. I don't know if I mentioned that. And
just context for listeners, you set him up with your sister.
Yeah.
When you guys got back from the mission.
That's right.
Been best buds ever since.
And he's like, hey, they want to facilitate the purchase of my company, which is called Beam, and then essentially merge the two together so we can be stronger together and, you know, go play a much bigger game.
Awesome.
Together. So that's what happened. And I sold a majority share of my company to them, and we're rebranding. It's partly why I'm out here in Utah, mostly this, and then we're rebranding as one company, so we kind of have a new identity. So what did I learn through that, dude? I'll tell you, man, it's not all pretty. Like,
that's what we want to hear, man.
Bro. So, I'm
sure you had to tell yourself that life is a game a lot through that.
Oh yeah,
through
man.
that transition.
Yes. So just a couple of things that are interesting, like how many people like start a company, start a venture, and maybe, you know, divvy up equity in the beginning, right? Like, oh yeah, you take 10% or you take whatever. And most of the time that doesn't turn out to be anything.
Right.
It's like it just fizzles out. Oh, moving to something else. And you know, it was just all monopoly money, but it kind of just meant partnership. It meant something. Well, it does things to a relationship. It kind of, things level up when all of a sudden that equity becomes very real and very much in a stack of legal documents, and like it's very front and center.
In a good way or a bad way or both?
It's just intense. It's just new. It was new for me. So I had to, and am still kind of like navigating this experience of like being purchased, having an exit. And I can only imagine what it's like at like a bigger scale, you know, like this was a good learning experience, but like you think about these companies that get bought for, you know, billions of dollars and, I think what I'm getting at here, I'm probably being really vague, is like, I have struggled with feeling like there's like a deservability thing, and you kind of struggle with the whole experience, like, you know, feeling like, you know, am I wrong for making a certain amount of money, or you know, does everyone feel valued? Like it's just a lot of things just become like very high definition when all of a sudden we're talking about like selling equity, and it puts it puts relationships in different light. It's just an interesting, I was so stressed the entire time because I was thinking about how do my guys feel? And I never had an equal partner. So that was actually some advice from Casey. And I'm not opposed to having an equal partner at all, but where I was at when I started this was there wasn't someone in mind where the timing made sense. I didn't think you know, it wasn't like I was sitting there with my buddy trying to figure out, let's start a business, right? I was living in North Carolina by myself. And so his advice was like, hey, you don't need to go necessarily have an equal partner, but you can go hire for key positions and then give that key position upside. But there's just a lot of stress and angst inside of me about like, are people feeling taken care of?
Sure. Which is cool because that means you're rooted in abundance.
So, anyways, what else can I say about this? I feel like
What's your takeaway on that?
my takeaway is
You went through it.
you want to make, you want to make deals and you want to honor your deals. And you can feel good about being the kind of person that honors their deals. Like that's what you can hang your hat on. So just honor your deals to the very best of your ability. You don't have to write a story about the inequality. If the deal was made on both parties and it felt good about it, whether that deal ends up being monopoly money or it ends up being, millions of dollars, just be the kind of person that honors the deal and looks for ways to like over deliver and just,
It's great.
Okay. The other thing I learned is that going through a big transition of like kind of becoming part of a bigger company is like a culture tsunami. It is it shakes up your tender little organization.
Right.
And like puts it in a blender. And it's like, if anyone's still left standing after and they're still excited, count that as a miracle. But that's how I felt the way I went through it. Now, going through it again, I think there's things I could do differently. But like, you just think about like, dude, people were bought into this startup, our identity, our brand,
They're sold on.
me having control. There's trust there. There's security there.
Right.
When that is changing, even if you as the founder can see 100 reasons that this makes everyone's job more secure and like the company more secure, and that means more opportunities for everybody. We get to play this game for longer. Like, you as the founder or the CEO, you may think that. And one of the big learnings I had is like, that might be 100% the opposite of what your, office admin feels.
Yeah.
Because what they think is, oh, my days are numbered. Like they already have people that do what I do. And they get skittish, they lose and they start looking for opportunities. Even if you're telling them, no,
right.
It's such a seismic shift because now there's people that they don't know that are calling some shots and they're in Zoom calls with people that they've never met in person. That was a fail, right? Like I wish I would have gotten people in flesh together before this went, but there was less feeling of like us versus them. It just shook up a lot of things, man. And, wow, a lot of learnings through it. And it's like, I was far from perfect going through that largely because I just had no concept of how turbulent that would be on an organization's culture. So, and you run huge sales force, change management is difficult. If you roll out a new pay structure, dude, you're going to be on lots of calls. You're talking everybody off the ledge at some point, and so if you think about making 3 big changes in the same 60-day period, and the person that they equate to being my boss, he values me, everything's secure, that changes form too.
Yeah.
It's like a miracle anybody sticks around. People get very, very nervous and so it's an opportunity though, because now it's like, man, I never want to take for granted that somebody who's working in an organization that I lead feels secure. I'm never just going to assume that. I'm never going to assume that, oh, they know that I love them being here and that they've got a job. They know that we're always going to, if they produce value, right, that there's going to be a strong future for them. Just don't assume it. Tell them, and then tell them again, and then show them. And I actually found myself feeling awkward because I think I'm pretty expressive with, telling certain people, hey, I really appreciate you. I love that you're here. And I would always sometimes think like, hey,
is it too much?
Don't say too much, dude. It kind of just gets weird. I'm in a place where I'm like, no, actually triple it. Play on that edge of the spectrum. Like show and say your appreciation a lot. And mean it, you know, don't just tell them, but like give them opportunities to make more money and to have more autonomy in their job. Autonomy is a huge one. If people don't feel autonomy, dude, you know, they don't feel like they're really empowered.
Yeah.
And so that's a blessing, man. Cause like, dude, I'm not going to leave it up to, I'm not going to leave any doubt. I'm going to strive to not leave any doubt now. If someone's working with me and they're producing value, right? Now, if someone's not producing value and like it's not a good fit, then you've got to have hard conversations. That's just part of the business game. Like that part isn't my favorite. And you're not doing your job if you're not having conversations and divesting of certain people. That's for sure. And the people that you want to hold close and grow and foster and like you consider a key part of this organization, guarantee you there are people that they don't know you think that, and they are looking for options because they just think they're on the chopping block and that you would just pass them up in a second. Maybe even especially outside, I don't know. Maybe some of it was a little bit of unique to like North Carolina. There's different cultures, different, you know, but from a principal standpoint, I'm sure that still exists here, like even in a Utah-based sales force, like, and you could probably think of like I'm curious, when you think of a leader you've worked underneath, we'll say, in a sales organization, is there anyone that stands out that like they did something that really showed you like, dang, he really does value me, and it had staying power, like it kept you engaged in an opportunity?
Yeah, I have. The CEO of the company I currently work at, Hawks. I remember my wife just got cancer, and it was 3 days before the first day of summer. And so I'm getting housing, furnishing, getting teams dialed in, travel plans, branch managers, techs. The worst time in the world for this to happen. I just got married a week before too. So
I remember this time well, man.
dude, it was crazy. But I remember feeling so overwhelmed and getting hit with multiple different things in multiple categories. It's so small, this thing. But I get a call 2 hours after the doctor's appointment, and it says Scott Wilson, CEO. And I answer, and he says, "We got everything taken care of. You go be present. You do your thing. We will handle everything for you, and you don't need to worry about a thing." And that sounds so simple, and most people would be like, "Yeah, that's what he should do." But that call of reassurance, my love 10x'd for him in that moment. It was probably because I was in such a need, and I've drawn upon that multiple times, and yeah, it anchored me in, dude. Concreted me in.
Yeah, no, and it's like, think about how easy it would have been for him to not make that call.
Right, just assume it.
Or something came up, or you sent a text, but it's like that deposit he made into your relationship account is fat, you know? So good for him, you know?
Paid dividends.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know if I answered your question, but those are some things I've learned.
Dude.
Basically, you think that sounds like exactly the thing everyone wants. Like, oh, like go have some sort of transaction and get it brought into a larger company. And yes, that's true, but it doesn't mean that is an easy process. Like it's actually really stressful.
Sure.
And everyone experiences things differently. I think I'm kind of neurotic and kind of like, I worry about people like a lot, like sometimes to an unhealthy level where I was like tense for like months, bro. We're like on calls with lawyers and just so much paperwork, and like I just wanted it to be done.
Yeah.
Just so that we could kind of like get back to the normal swing of things, you know?
It's interesting. It's cool, man. You've had a lot of cool chapters from door to door, doing your own thing, and then doing your own thing in a completely different industry, and then going out and building something and selling it in 14 years. It's a lot of cool experiences, man.
Yeah. And before we cap off that, I just want to like, you know, shout out to like, you know, we talk about like Larry H. Miller and Sandlot because they're like some sexy names, dude. I'm
Right.
really glad those guys are involved.
Right.
And like my interaction with them during the process was amazing. So Alex Dunn is like the managing partner over LHM's new like war chest of invest in small companies. And he is just so smart, dude. And such a good guy.
So cool.
Just being in a room with him is like, this is awesome. Alden, that's his name from Sandlot. I couldn't remember his name. Remember? But like Alden, Casey, like all those guys, dude, it's just like so impressive. It's just like you're just in rooms and you're just like, I'm just lucky to be here in this room with these guys. They just operate at a high level, you know? But two of like kind of the unsung heroes like that intentionally fly under the radar is like Benson Payne and Grant Young, who mad credit to them, dude. Like this last year has been incredible, and it wouldn't be what it has turned out to be if it weren't for them going and building an incredible business in New York. That then led to kind of this whole acquisition and merger. And I just feel super fortunate to work around them and, you know, like tons of gratitude for their success, kind of allowing me to have an opportunity to have success. So one of the best things people can do is be really successful. A little like nugget I think that I've learned is it's something you don't hear very often, but you know, thank people for being successful. You know, like even if they're not directly working with you or whatever, you just see someone that's just like, what was the guy? Were you at MW3?
Yeah.
Yeah, you were there. That's right. I sat next to you. Jesse Itzler.
Yeah.
Like his
Dynamite,
presentation.
dude.
Okay. Unbelievable. And I sent him a message afterwards on Instagram, and it was just my heart's message to him was thank you for being so successful. Because if he hadn't gone and been so successful, I mean, even I'm including financial successful, like, you know, with his books, his family, his life resume thing, all this crazy stuff. It's making it easier for me to be successful. Like, bro, I'm literally benefiting because you have been crazy successful. So thank you for that. It's the inverse of a paradigm that some people unfortunately get from society and culture, which is that it's some sort of zero-sum game. And if that guy's really successful, there's kind of a little less market share for me to go be successful. It's like, no, dude. It's so not my experience. My experience is I want to put myself in proximity with people who are being successful because the byproduct is I find opportunities to go be successful. So like, thank you. Like go hug a successful person is the message here, you know? Like go hug your local multimillionaire, you know? That'd be a polarizing comment. But it's like, go hug the person that, man, you created so many jobs, or like, you know, we kind of like vilified like the rich or whatever. It's like some of that may be warranted in some ways, but like capitalism can have a dark side and stuff. But like, let us not forget that like, if it weren't for people going out and having a ton of success, I mean, we're following versions of their blueprint all the time. So like, thank you, you know? I don't feel like I've had any super original success. Like I've just been able to follow some clues and pick up on some amazing layups, you know? So that's what I'll say about that.
It's beautiful, dude. I'm going to go hug 13 people today. I appreciate that. This has been an educational experience for me, and I hope it's been educational for those listening. And as always, man, I'm just grateful for who you are and who you're being, because that's what I learned most about is that it's less about the words you say and more about who you're being. And I appreciate that. And you're a hero to me, man. And I love you and I'm grateful for you. And that is what I want to say to cap off today's episode. We'll see you guys next week.
This has been cool.
Appreciate you.